ductal carcinoma in situ is the most common in situ carcinoma of the breast. What are different types of ductal carcinoma in situ? It can be of a papillary type, it may be of a cribiform type, it may be a solid type, or it may be a comedo type. So, these are the 4 types of ductal carcinoma in situ: papillary, cribiform, solid and comedo. Out of this, the comedo type is considered as the most aggressive type, which has extensive necrosis, most aggressive type with extensive necrosis, and can be ER/PR negative. So, that is the most aggressive type. Now, 2 very important things which you have to see in ductal carcinoma in situ is the degree of necrosis and the nuclear grade. So, based on this, we have a classification for ductal carcinoma in situ, which divides into 3 types. It can be a comedo type, which has a high nuclear grade with extensive necrosis. I just said that comedo type has extensive necrosis, and it is considered as a high grade ductal carcinoma in situ. So, this classification basically is dividing them into different grades depending upon the presence of necrosis and the nuclear grade. Then there can be intermediate type, where the nuclear grade is intermediate, necrosis may be present, if present it is focally present, or it may be absent, and this is called as the intermediate ductal carcinoma in situ grade. Then there can be non-comedo types, where the nuclear grade is low and the necrosis is absent, and this is called as a low DCIS grade. So, we can have a high grade, the comedo type, which has extensive necrosis, high nuclear grade. You have an intermediate type, which is a intermediate nuclear grade with focal or absent necrosis, that is called the intermediate grade DCIS, and we can have a low grade DCIS, the non-comedo types, where the necrosis is absent and the nuclear grade is low. Now, how does the patient with ductal carcinoma in situ present, and how do we establish a diagnosis? Patients of ductal carcinoma in situ may present as a lump, they may present as a lump, they may present as nipple discharge, or at times it may be a incidental finding. When we are doing a screening investigation, a screening mammography, this ductal carcinoma in situ may be picked up as an incidental finding. How do you diagnose? We have been talking about that. In case it's present as a lump, you have to go for a core biopsy, is the investigation of choice. In case there is no lump, we'll have to go for a stereotactic biopsy. We'll have to go for a stereotactic biopsy, image guided stereotactic biopsy, which we had discussed in our first section, first module, when we were discussing investigation of breast cancer, where we talked about the how to manage or how to investigate non-palpable lesions. Another important thing is that ductal carcinoma in situ usually does not involve the axillary lymph nodes, because in situ cancer, the tumor cells have not invaded the base membrane, so they do not involve the axillary lymph nodes. Now, what are the treatment options which we have for ductal carcinoma in situ? One option can be a breast conserving surgery, which may or may not be followed by radiotherapy, and some patients may require a mastectomy, a simple mastectomy, because usually the axillary lymph nodes are not involved. Now, what happens is we have one very important, prognostic index score for ductal carcinoma in situ, that is called as a Van Nuys prognostic index. Now, this index basically predicts the risk of local recurrence and helps us to decide that whether after breast conserving surgery we should give radiotherapy or we should not give radiotherapy, and also helps us know that which patients ultimately will need a simple mastectomy. They cannot be treated by BCS alone, and they need a simple mastectomy. We discussed that in ductal carcinoma in situ we can go for BCS without radiotherapy or simple mastectomy. So, this is one prognostic index which is going to guide us the further treatment of the patient, whether radiotherapy is required or not, or whether the patient ultimately requires a simple mastectomy. Now, this Van Nuys prognostic index is important, on which questions have been asked in different forms of surgical exams. It includes 4 parameters. Now, detailed score you don't need to know, but you need to know the 4 parameters, and the 4 parameters you can remember by mnemonic SCAM. Remember by mnemonic SCAM, where S stands for the size. So, size can be less than 15 millimeter, gets a score of 1, 16 to 40 millimeters get a score of 2, and more than 40 millimeters gets a score of 3. Then the margins, whether when we have done excision, whether excised with good amount of negative margins, wide margins or closed margins. So, if the margin is 10 millimeter, we give a score of 1. Margin is just 1 to 9 millimeter, we give a score of 2. Margin is less than 1 millimeter, we give a score of 3. Then comes the class. So, S is size, C is, I'll say, class, C is class. Class is if the tumor is grade 1 or 2. Without necrosis, you give a score of 1. If it is grade 1 or 2 with necrosis, give a score of 2, and grade 3 tumor is given a score of 3. And the last one is the age of the patient. More than 60 years, you give a score of 1. 40 to 60 score of 2, and less than 40 score of 3. So S stands for size, C stands for class, A for age, and M for margins. This is your SCAM, SCAM, 4 parameters which we include in ductal carcinoma in situ, one noise prognostic index. Okay. Now you will calculate the score. Then how do we go about with this score? If this one noise prognostic index has a low score means the score is 4, 5 or 6. 4, 5 or 6, then just a wide local excision is sufficient. We don't need to go for post-operative radiotherapy. A wide local excision is sufficient. We don't need to go for post-operative radiotherapy. Intermediate, if the score is 7, 8 or 9, then after wide local excision, we should go for radiotherapy. After wide local excision, we should always go for radiotherapy. And if it is a high grade, that is 10, 11 or 12, if the grade is high, 10, 11 or 12, then we'll always go for a mastectomy. So that is how, one as prognostic index becomes very important and has an impact on the management of a patient of ductal carcinoma in situ. Low score 4, 5, 6, only wide local excision. 7, 8, 9, intermediate score, you have to give radiotherapy after wide local excision, and a score of 10, 11, 12, you always have to go for a mastectomy. Then what is the role of sentinel lymph node biopsy in a patient of ductal carcinoma in situ? Sentinel lymph node biopsy is required only if you are doing a mastectomy. Because what happens is, in 20% of patients, biopsy, when we do a core biopsy, it shows ductal carcinoma in situ. But when you remove the entire specimen and send it for histopathology examination, in 20% of patients, it comes out to be infiltrating ductal cancer. Fine. That is why when we are doing a mastectomy, we should always go for a sentinel lymph node biopsy in patient with ductal carcinoma in situ. In BCS, if we are doing a BCS, a sentinel lymph node biopsy is usually not indicated. It is indicated only if it is a high-grade DCIS, or there is presence of micro-invasion. It's a high-grade DCIS or presence of micro-invasion, then only you go for sentinel lymph node biopsy after BCS or along with BCS. Then what is the role of chemotherapy in ductal carcinoma in situ? Chemotherapy usually is not indicated in patients of ductal carcinoma in situ because the risk of metastasis, is very low with ductal carcinoma in situ. And the role of hormonal therapy, we have been studying that in case the tumor is ER/PR positive, we'll go for hormonal therapy, and that same holds good even for ductal carcinoma in situ. So that is as far as ductal carcinoma in situ is concerned. So we have discussed the ductal varieties of breast cancer, the infiltrating ductal cancer, the ductal carcinoma in situ. Now let's go and talk about the lobular varieties. And the first thing I talk about is the LCIS, that is lobular carcinoma in situ. Now I have mentioned about this, at several stages in different sections when we are discussing the pre-malignant condition of the breast, when we are discussing the staging, that as per the latest 8th AJCC classification, lobular carcinoma in situ is no longer considered as a neoplasm of the breast. I'm repeating, it is no longer considered as a neoplasm of breast. It is considered as a condition with increased risk for malignancy. Just considered as a condition with increased risk for carcinoma breast. And how is it discovered? It is usually discovered as an incidental microscopic finding on a breast biopsy being done for some other indication. So you're doing a breast biopsy for some other indication, there you may incidentally find a lobular carcinoma in situ, or it may be found at the resected margin of a specimen. When you have removed a lump and at the margin of the specimen, of the resected specimen, you find a focus of lobular carcinoma in situ. Lobular carcinoma in situ are usually multifocal and bilateral, and they are recognized, a very important feature is they are recognized by conformity to the lobular outline with distended and filled acini. So conformity to lobular outline with distended acini filled with cells. So important thing is that in lobular carcinoma in situ, the lobular architecture is preserved. The lobular architecture is preserved in a lobular carcinoma in situ. Then I said it is a condition with an increased risk for breast cancer. So when it leads to breast cancer, it more commonly leads, something very, very important, it more commonly leads to a infiltrating ductal cancer. More commonly to infiltrating ductal cancer. But apart from that, the risk of infiltrating lobular carcinoma is also more. It is also more in patients having lobular carcinoma in situ as compared to the patients who are not having lobular carcinoma in situ. So I'm repeating, it is a risk factor of breast cancer, more commonly leads to infiltrating ductal cancer, but the risk of infiltrating lobular carcinoma is also more or higher in patients having lobular carcinoma in situ as compared to patients who do not have a lobular carcinoma in situ. Okay. And when it leads to a breast cancer, when it predisposes to a breast cancer, that predisposition is bilateral. So the breast cancer can occur in any of the breast. It can occur in any of the breast. But more commonly, the cancer which occurs due to lobular carcinoma in situ, the subsequent cancer is more commonly seen in the ipsilateral breast. So where the focus of lobular carcinoma in situ is there, in the same breast, the chances of developing a cancer is more. And more commonly, it is an infiltrating ductal cancer. Then this lobular carcinoma in situ, it expresses the ERPR receptor, it expresses the estrogen progesterone receptors, but it does not stain for HER2/neu. So it expresses estrogen progesterone receptors, but it does not stain for HER2/neu, and along with that, it does not express. There's a lack of expression of E-cathedrin. That is important. This is something which you will find in all lobular varieties. Lack of expression of E-cathedrin, you will find in all lobular varieties, whether it's a lobular carcinoma in situ, whether it is atypical lobular hyperplasia, whether it is infiltrating lobular cancer. And this lack of expression of E-cathedrin, it describes the classical histological features which we find in lobular varieties and also helps us to differentiate from the ductal varieties. So this is a very important feature, that they do not express E-cathedrin, which describes the histological features as well as differentiates from the ductal varieties. And this feature you can find in all types of lobular neoplasias, whether it's in situ cancer or an infiltrating lobular cancer. Then how do you manage a patient of lobular carcinoma in situ? What are the management options? One of the most common management options, surveillance. So most of the patients of lobular carcinoma in situ, they adopt mammographic surveillance as a management option. So one of the most common management options is mammographic surveillance. Apart from this, can be also managed by chemoprevention by using the what is called as a hormonal agents like tamoxifen. The selective estrogen receptor modulators can be used. And another management option can be prophylactic mastectomy. So not many patients go for this prophylactic mastectomy, but if it is done, it reduces the risk of breast cancer. It reduces the risk of CA breast almost by 90% in these high risk females. So most commonly adopted strategy is a mammographic surveillance. Then we said at times it can be found at the margin of a resected specimen. If the classical variety of lobular carcinoma in situ is found at the margin of a resected specimen, then you don't have to go further for any other active intervention. So no further resection, no further excision is required if you find a focus of classical variety. I'm talking the classical variety right now. If you find the focus of the classical variety of lobular carcinoma in situ at the margin of the resected specimen. Why I'm stressing on classical variety? Because we can have a variant of lobular carcinoma in situ that is something called as a pleomorphic variant. So there's a pleomorphic variant of lobular carcinoma in situ described little recently itself. I'll not say very recently, but yes, little recently described, and it is considered as an aggressive histological subtype. It's an aggressive histological type or subtype of the lobular carcinoma in situ. And as the name suggests, pleomorphic variant, it has extensive nuclear pleomorphism. So the extensive nuclear pleomorphism, and that's why it is called as a pleomorphic variety of lobular carcinoma in situ. It's an aggressive type, and histologically, one or more than one lobules will be distended with this cohesive cells, and they'll be irregularly shaped high-grade nuclei. So one or more than one lobules will be distended with this cohesive cells, and they'll be irregularly shaped high-grade nuclei will be there. The pleomorphic variant also, like the classical lobular carcinoma in situ, this also usually is estrogen receptor positive. This is also estrogen receptor positive, and it does not express, like the classical variety again, I told you this is a very classical feature for all lobular varieties, it does not express E-cathedrin. So it is ER positive but does not express E-cathedrin. Apart from this, it is this variety where we may find central or common necrosis and microcalcification. So this is something which you don't see in a classical variety, but in a pleomorphic variety, we can find it can be associated with central or common necrosis and microcalcifications, something similar to what you find in ductal carcinoma in situ. And when microcalcifications are present, this type of lobular carcinoma in situ, this variety of lobular carcinoma in situ, it can be detected on mammographically. It can be detected on mammography or it can be detected mammographically. So that is an important feature which these lobular carcinoma in situs have. The pleomorphic variety, the treatment for pleomorphic variety is always surgical excision to negative margins. So you have to excise with negative margins, like basically you're going to treat it like ductal carcinoma in situ. So it behaves more like a ductal carcinoma in situ. So you have to treat it like ductal carcinoma in situ. You have to excise with negative margins. Role of radiotherapy is still controversial. It is still controversial for this pleomorphic variant.